Welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I'm Casey Kelderman, and today I'm joined by series creator of Eternal Confidence, Dempsey Tapley. Dempsey, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about your what would you call Eternal Confidence?
So it's been changed.
Okay.
It started out as I called it a docu-series, and now it's an interview series.
Okay.
And I know it's that's such a small, a difference between a docu-series and an interview series, but I think I'm coming to grips with how it's not cinematic and it's more like content creatory rather than more like proper film. And so I didn't want to call it like a docu-series because I think a docu-series
has a narrative to it.
Yes. Yeah. It should have like a narrative, and it should have it should be more story driven, where this is more like Humans in New York, or Jubilee is a content creator that has this is all these people's different opinions on things, Anyways, so it used to be a docu-series, but now it's an interview series because I want to kind of respect what documentary means to people.
Yeah, and there is
sense.
such a slight difference between the two that they often do cross over in the general consciousness.
Yeah.
If you want to just give us a quick rundown of what Eternal Confidence is and kind of where people can find it first of all.
Yeah. So Eternal Confidence is an interview series, and it's about people's spiritual views, and it centers around. So there's this really big trend that people are growing up in the church and then not going to church when they get older, and that's an extremely common trend. And what I'm interested in is, regardless of what your personal beliefs are about that, how it affects people's relationships with each other, and how it affects how does not going to church anymore affect your relationship with your parents who are still religious, or how do religious people see people who don't go to church anymore? How does it affect the interpersonal relationships? And then also see how that affects people's views and how different they are. So if someone who is agnostic, how different is their view from someone who's Christian, or someone who's Christian, how traditionally Christian, we have oh my God, there's a word. We have not stereotypes, archetypes. We have archetypes of what we consider certain belief systems having.
Yep.
And Christianity, I think, in broad culture, we have these archetypes of things that Christians believe. And so it's about exploring whether actual Christians believe those things. Because I find that it's a little more nuanced when you ask specific individuals what they specifically believe about specific things. There's a lot more nuance than maybe I initially thought there would be, which is something that's really exciting. I think a lot of times if I go to a church, I listen to the pastor talk and I assume that everyone's agreeing with the pastor, and then it's not until I ask people specific questions about specific topics do I realize how diverse and nuanced people's takes are. And so that's what the series is. It's inviting people to come and videoing them talk about these specific topics, how do you view morality, how do you view people who don't agree with you, and stuff like that. Anyways, so that's what the series is. There's 2 seasons, or season 2 is currently coming out. It comes out every week. And so what it is it's every episode is a question. And so throughout the course of the season, we follow the same 6 people as they answer different questions. And so the idea is that if you follow the whole season, you kind of get to know these people a little better, which is really fun. So you get some, everyone gives a little bit of background about themselves, and then you kind of get to learn about their attitude towards people they disagree with, and you get to learn their attitude towards morality and their attitude towards kindness and stuff like that. And so if you stay, Anyways, I don't know. I feel like I'm ranting.
No,
I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. That's pretty much it. Just sit and listen to people talk.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like about it, is that each episode is a different question.
Yes.
And you hear 6 different point of views on that same question, and they can vary from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other, and anything in between. So where did you come up with this idea to do this series?
So I have a degree in elementary education, and then I decided not to be a teacher, and so I had to do something that was quasi-educational, and so I think this leans into that. I wouldn't call it an educational series, but it has a lot of educational themes in it. Learning how to analyze people's opinions, learning where information comes from. It's a lot of people self-analyzing themselves and metacognitive processes that you can see people go through. And so there's a lot of kind of educational themes that exist in a series like this. Also, I think I met I have a lot of friends who used to go to church and don't go to church anymore. And hearing that causes conflict with their family, and even if it's not like a dramatic conflict, it's still like a subconscious conflict. Like even if your parents aren't like outright insulting you about it, you just feel more distant because of that. And I want to see how much of that is valid and how much of like, oh, if we just talk about this clearly and openly, without worry of offensive, I wonder how much of this like we can work through emotionally as like as people who have people who are very close to us that believe different things than we do.
Well, yeah, and I think we're here in Sioux Falls. We're right in the middle of the Bible Belt. Like this is the place to tell these stories, like and hear different point of views. And I like the way you go about it because I can't really think of any other thing, especially in this area, that tackles these kind of subjects so openly, I would say.
Sure.
Because each person, they're not afraid to share their point of view, which everybody needs a voice in that.
Yeah.
Is that something you try to strive for?
Yeah, I think so a lot of like the creation of the series and like the behind the scenes, like my processy, is built around mitigating my own bias. And so I have personal views about religion and about God and stuff like that. But I know that like if I was to like, I love video essays. I love video essays so much. I like spend like so many hours watching video essays. But like, if I was going to make a video essay about this topic, it would kind of just maybe turn into me convincing people that I'm right or something like that. And that's not really what I wanted to go for. I wanted to go for something that kind of mitigated my own bias. And so like, whether it's, so like in Sioux Falls, we have, okay, this is a very local reference. You know those billboards? Yes, they're still up. They're very ugly. They're blue.
Contain a lot of text.
There's way too much text.
Yes.
So like, and they're very pro-atheist, anti-religious, specifically anti-religious, not just like having the conversation, but take a really strong, I would say, aggressive stance in the conversation. And or on the other side, you have like churches who talk about what their idea of atheism is, but like everyone's talking about everyone else's belief from their own perspective with their own biases, and it's very rare that like we just get to hear these beliefs without an intended bias. So it's not meant to sometimes people ask me like, what's the point of the series? And I don't know what the point of the series is. it's just content for the internet. Like people watch it because I think people are interested in seeing nuance like this.
Well, you can ask that about anything that's on YouTube right now. What's the point of this? It's a kid opening toys, like and he's the highest paid guy on YouTube now. Yeah. What's the point of it? Sometimes it doesn't need to have a point anymore. And I found that a lot lately, like especially in the culture we live in and the YouTube space that it is now, is that if you have something to say, maybe if it doesn't have, I don't think your show doesn't have a point, just to be clear. But because I do think there is not necessarily a narrative, but there's a different stories that need to be told and voices that need to be heard. And I think your show definitely has that. But when you look at what YouTube is as a whole, it's kind of just nonsense. In all honesty, and I like YouTube is my television right now. I don't have cable because it's free on YouTube. And I'll watch the commercials and stuff, but that's television to people our age because we're roughly the same age. And how have you found that's kind of the route to go? Because I mean, if you would have looked back even 10 years ago, this type of series would have been
groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking, and you would have been stuck to a religious television station or a local, type of station. How have you found that, even with how old we are, we're on the younger end of people on the internet as far as content creators. How have you found that's the route that you needed to go for this and be able to share the content via YouTube rather than traditional ways of expressing religious programming?
Sure. I think so. A couple things. So first of all, I've had to learn how to approach the idea of content and not film. Mm-hmm. Like I think that's something I have to. I'm still learning because I started filmmaking my freshman year in college, and it was very much filmmaking, which is like I'm trying to learn what that means still. But like my first documentary was very much a narrative, and it was this it was a documentary, and it was like a narrative over these 3 places around town that were like artsy or whatever. And it was very important to me that it was like a film. And I think, and then I made a couple shorts, and one short was rejected from every festival, and then like I think 2 festivals sent me a note back being like, this is not a film, which is a great thing to receive. But like, and so I was like, okay, I think sometimes making like film proper, like making like movies, takes a certain amount of resource, whether that's like time or whether that's like literal currency or social currency or whatever. It takes a lot, like convincing like even like a small crew of like 5 people to take a day off and do this thing for one vision. Like that's a hefty toll to ask people to do, and then it gets expensive if you pay them, and like if you don't have a lot of practice doing it, then you don't even have the assurance that it's going to be good. And that's what I found is like I had to make these bad films to get better, but it was hard to make bad films consistently because of all the effort and time and other people's time that it takes to make film. And so for me, like one of the things that YouTube provides really beautifully is the ability to make something with my camera that's like emotional and that's idea driven, but that's not like a proper film, and so it doesn't have the proper like standards that I would, it doesn't have to have a narrative as long as it's interesting. And so like I think YouTube allows people to spend time behind the camera without like the infrastructure that it takes to make a proper movie. Not that like, and so that's kind of the route that I went. I'm like, okay, I can either spend a lot of time making these movies that aren't very good, or I can like and then I don't have a lot of watch time at the end of it. Like I think I spent like a year, and I made a 45-minute documentary in the course of a year. Or I can put something out every week, that's 10 minutes, and so I have that much footage in a month, and I just a lot of more time practicing and talking to people and doing interviews and whatever. And so I think what YouTube did as a creator was like it changed my idea of like, this is like how to create things in a different way. I like YouTube's ability to like, as it doesn't matter as long as it's interesting. It doesn't matter what you're making as long as it's interesting. As long as people can connect to it in some way, and it also gives you the ability to get a lot of practice in doing whatever it is you're doing. And I think those are very valuable. And also that's just what I watch. Like I love watching interviews. I love watching other interview series on YouTube. So I'm like, if I watch this that other people make, then other people might watch this because I'm making it.
Yeah, and it's a thing like you make what you watch.
Yeah,
type of thing.
100%. Yeah, I think if there wasn't like great content creators doing kind of exactly what I'm doing with like a different thing, like I think like Humans in New York is like he photography, but he also does some documentaries, and it's very much the same thing where there's no real narrative to it. There's like a thematic narrative or like something like that, but it's just interviews with people. And you try to pick out what makes these people interesting or whatever. And like, there's no need for, production or actors or, really hardcore editing or, whatever. It's just people talking. And I think that's okay. I think that's what podcasts are, is people talking.
Yeah. That's literally what I do every week. Yeah.
Anyways.
No, I guess the next thing I want to talk about, let's jump into YouTube a little bit, because YouTube is just kind of a monster right now.
Yeah.
And it can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Have you ran into either side of that so far as a content creator?
It's terrifying. I don't make things for kids, and I don't do gaming, which is great right now, because things like gamers are running into problems with like their content is being watched by children, and YouTube's really cracking down on child data.
What they can watch,
they can watch. And so like, if I was a streamer, if I was like putting up things that can be enjoyed by children, I would be a lot more stressed. I'm not, though. This is not something that an 8-year-old is going to watch.
Yeah.
So so when you upload this little box that says this is meant for children, and I feel completely confident saying no, it's not meant for kids. I don't think anything's going to market as being for kids, and that's like, it's also not like explicit content, and I beep all the profanity. So like the potential of not being advertiser friendly, I think I do that to mitigate those risks. It is terrifying that YouTube. Do you know who Hank Green is? Hank Green's this guy. He's on YouTube. He runs a lot of PBS Digital Studio stuff. So he does like the SciShow, and a lot of like has like a whole conglomerate of like YouTube channels that are educational. Anyways, he talks a lot about what it means to exist in a corporate space where I I don't have a vote in what YouTube does. Like they can do things because they're a corporation.
Yeah.
And like so like if next month they're to say we're going to treat religious content differently on YouTube, I would have no power to do anything about
to change that. Yeah.
Or we're going to change if someone marks as offensive because they disagree with it, because it is putting very polarizing sometimes opinions right by side and like right side by side and very polarizing opinions. And I market it towards kind of everybody who has an opinion. I market it towards people who are very fervently religious and people who are very fervently anti-religious equally. And so like the fact that I can be scared of like people reporting it for hate speech or reporting it for like whatever thing they find offensive about it because they happen to disagree with it, and like knowing that like once YouTube takes something down, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
And so that's terrifying. And so I think one of the things I've been thinking about like how to mitigate that is to try to exist in like a lot of different spaces, so at least if something happens I can inform my audience about it if I can't inform them on YouTube. So like it's important to like have an Instagram and a Facebook as well as your YouTube, so if like something happens to a video you can inform people on your other channels, like on your other social media, like what's happening on YouTube. But no, that's so scary. Like the idea that like this is where I'm putting all my work, but
and all of a sudden one day it could just be gone.
I have
and that's
it. I can have no control over it.
Yeah.
I think that's terrifying. I think that's why it's important to have your own website to mitigate things like that. But also like video hosting on your website, it's not going to drive traffic there like YouTube can, and it's expensive to have that much data on a server. And so YouTube let you do it for free, and also has algorithms built for helping you get followers. So it's like it's so wonderful and also so terrifying. And like like if things get more polarized, or if they start treating content that they can, that's what I'm most worried about, is like what is offensive and what it's not. Because my whole thing is putting opposing views, that people are kind of allowed to speak their mind without me editorializing it. So like I think that's what's scary, but not as scary as if I was doing like kids stuff right now, because that's
what's getting getting hit right now. Yeah.
But I don't know. We exist in corporate spaces now. The internet's corporate, and we have to learn how to manage that.
And YouTube's not what it was 10 years ago. Like
no.
Like when these people that are now making the millions of dollars are like when they had it starting off, like PewDiePie or anyone like that. It's not the same landscape that it was back then. It's definitely a more corporate conglomerate now for everything on it.
It's more regulated, and they want to make it safer, which I understand why they're doing that, because I think like there's this whole dark side of like what child content looks like on YouTube, and some, like as an educator, I know some of that content is genuinely harmful, like the idea of getting kids addicted to unboxing videos. Like there's like
it's what's the point of it? Yeah, what are kids learning from that? I think that if they can start mitigating that and focusing on what kids should be watching, not to put it into a box or have total corporate control over it all, but to make things more educational, I think, for kids. And
especially when it's just like random people can upload stuff and say it's for kids. Like I understand, like try to get into the algorithm of things that kids are watching. Like I understand the need to like respond to that, and I understand why it's impossible to expand to that stuff in a way that makes everyone happy. Like it's just crappy that there's no happy solution to stuff like this. And I think like right now we're seeing with kids content, but I think we're gonna see with other types of content eventually later. Like I think what's labeled hate speech, what's labeled offensive. A lot of these different, it's with kids stuff right now. I will not be surprised if I get more nervous because of decisions down in the future, and I have to be thinking about ways to mitigate that. I don't know. Anyways.
So let's jump back to Eternal Confidence here. I want to know why you wanted to do it on video. Has video always been something like you've been passionate about? I mean, because you could have done it as a blog or some just even Facebook post or Instagram post, but you chose video. Why video?
Podcast came in very close.
Okay.
Because I don't have to worry about video with the podcast. I think video. I think it's because I really love spending time on YouTube. Like that's where like there's certain channels that I follow, and like I feel like I'm a part of their audience community, and I think that's a really specific thing that like I felt. I grew up. So a little random fact about me. My last 2 years of high school, I took all college classes, and I only had to write one paper per college class, and I did it all in one day. So I just had 4 days a week for 2 years of high school where I had nothing to do. So I just watched movies and videos for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, and that was my entire last 2 years of high school.
So that was your high school education, pretty much.
My high school education is watching YouTube, and so I think because of kind of just how entrenched my mind is to like, oh, like this is what internet content is. I really like what visuals can do as far as humanizing someone very quickly. So I like to film in people's living rooms, and I think like if you can see someone comfortable in a space that they own and see how they decorate and see like, you know, what's their wall color and like you can get a sense of someone's socioeconomic status by seeing what their living room looks like, and so that's just a lot. Or if they have a hobby that we can see them doing that says something about them. I think like someone who works on saddles, like someone who, you know, restores Western saddles is a little bit different than someone who restores like old typewriters. Like you can see that instantly without taking time away.
Well, yeah, and you understand a person more just even by looking at their background. Of a video, not necessarily having them express, you know, their entire life story, but even like I can tell in a lot of your videos like what their personality is and what their interests are just by the background that they're in. Yeah. And
so I like that. I used to tell people, so I grew up, so like I said, I'm an educator, and so reading's a big thing. And so, however, I have like this whole, in college I wrote a lot of papers about like the push for video literacy, because I think kids need to understand video better than they do now. And the poetic case I used to make for video is like, no matter how well you describe a smile, it's never as impactful as just seeing a smile. And so there's just some things that like some instant things that video does very well, and that's just the medium that I happen to be doing my other stuff in. So I kind of had a little bit of a handle of like, oh, this is a language, and this is how to smash cut things and make them not feel awkward, and this is how to like, you know, I don't know. I think video. There's an efficiency with video that is expected. I think a really long podcast can play well, but I think a really long video you have to work harder to make people stay as long.
Yep.
And so like a podcast
you can listen to anywhere. Like a video, you got to be engaged the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can listen to a podcast while I do my dishes and then go to my car and drive to work, and I'm listening to the same podcast the whole time. You can't do that with one of my videos, and so it's a different set of rules and languages that I'm kind of attracted to. But. So
since I know you're a movie guy too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about movies for a little while.
Okay, this is fun.
What are some of your favorite movies this year?
So I haven't watched a whole lot of movies until like recently. So recently, I watched Bombshell, which I really loved. Like way more. I thought Bombshell was going to be like, okay. So I think sometimes when people do movies with like really strong political themes, they can sometimes be like come off as elitist or come off as like cringy or like
presenting only one side of the story.
Or passive aggressive or something like that.
Like Adam McKay movies a little bit.
Yeah. But I think Bombshell was like, I didn't feel like that at all. I think it presented this thing which is like really tough to talk about in a very empathetic light, and I didn't feel polarizing, and I loved Bombshell so much. And then I just watched Knives Out.
Okay.
Which is so wonderful. I loved how I think this is a spoiler for that. Can I spoil Knives Out? Have you guys talked about it? Are you guys going to talk about it?
Yeah. Go ahead and spoil it. Spoilers for Knives Out if you're listening.
I love Knives Out. It was like unexpectedly wholesome. Have you seen Knives Out?
I have not yet.
Okay, then I won't.
Just don't spoil the who it is.
So
anything else I don't really care about.
Knives Out is way more like wholesome and like reassuring that there's good in the world than I expected it to be. Like it's just like I seen the trailers and I was like it's like this whatever mystery whodunit, but like it genuinely is like this really like I don't know, it's kind of like uplifting, but and you just didn't expect that.
Whodunit.
Yeah, I just didn't expect that. I was like, whoa, this is. Anyways, I cried twice. but I don't know what else came out this year. I didn't like. This is like these last 2 months are like when all the awardee movies. I want to watch Uncut Gems. I haven't seen Uncut Gems. I watched The Irishman. Didn't really understand it. It was really long. Have you seen The Irishman?
I have not yet.
Okay.
No. That's one of my before the Oscars comes out watches.
Okay. I don't. The Irishman. So, like, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it's a gangster movie.
No.
Okay.
No. So it's a Scorsese movie.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a gangster movie. And I think, it's very much like The Wolf of Wall Street, where it's like this, like the subtle criticism of this thing that he's going in depth. Like The Wolf of Wall Street is like this criticism of what it means to live like, exorbitant or whatever.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of like, I think The Irishman was like showing how out of place in the real world the gangster lifestyle is, but I'm not sure. So like, I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie so I can understand the themes a little better. I don't know what else came out. I watched some documentaries from last year. Finally, this year, the one was that the climbing guy, the one that I think that won Best Picture for the climbing. What's it called? Free Solo. There we go.
Yeah.
Free Solo. That was good. Disney Plus censored that movie, which so it's on Disney
really?
Plus.
Yeah.
It's a Nat Geo film, and they censored it, and that really surprised me. But it's censored, and so like there's little bits of language that happen, like he'll say shit or damn or whatever, and you can like there's really bad like audio that plays over it that's a different, more PG word.
Really?
So they can keep it on brand PG.
That's strange.
On the streaming service.
Because I watched Home Alone recently on Disney Plus, and they don't cut anything out from a 8-year-old kid saying that stuff, which is weird.
No, yeah,
I don't know.
And I because I seen it in the movie. I seen it like her mouth did not match her words there, and so I rewound and like I Googled it, and sure enough, Disney censored their Oscar-winning movie on their streaming service, which just blows my mind. I don't know, all for the mouse, I guess. What else came out this year? What else?
I don't know.
Joker.
Yeah, Joker came out this year.
I mean, Joker. Yeah. I think I liked it. I liked it a lot in the first 24 hours, and then I didn't like it, and then I think if I talk about it, I'll like it again. So.
The stuff I loved in Joker, I loved, but the stuff I didn't like, I really didn't like. It's a straight up retelling of Taxi Driver. It's the same movie.
Yeah.
Except the Joker's in this movie, and I feel if it had, I also think there was a little studio saying, hey, you need to include like the Waynes and Thomas Wayne's death. You have to include that stuff, which I don't think was necessary for that entire story. But I think Joaquin is killer in that movie. I think he's. I mean, honestly, if we're ending the decade here, he's might be the best. His filmography from this decade, he might have the best of anyone out there. He's so good in everything.
He did Her. That's the only one I can.
The Master.
The Master. Okay. Yeah. He's really versatile.
Inherent Vice.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, and he can do it all. I mean, even looking back at an earlier movie from him, Signs, he's completely different than what he's ever played since. Yeah. I think he's really good in Signs. Signs itself is a different story, but I think Joaquin is really good in the movie.
I don't know. What else came out this year? I'm trying to think. I seen Ready or Not.
Yeah.
Ready or Not was super fun. Yeah. I loved it. It was like that felt brisk and fun, and like it was, have you seen it? I can spoil that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like as the movie goes on, there's like this really like it's not subtle at all, but her like wedding dress mirrors like the adventure that she goes on, and that's super like that's just a really fun detail that makes that movie like super fun. It's like her like it starts out very pristine and whatever, and as the movie goes on, her wedding dress gets like more and more tattered, and I think that's like how simple and fun that movie was.
That movie is the most fun I've had watching a movie in the theater probably since I saw Force Awakens opening weekend, and that was 4 years ago now. And every Star Wars movie since is a different story. That's a different topic.
Sure.
But Ready or Not is so much fun. Like I just had a blast watching it. I think it's one of the best of the year.
I think, I didn't expect it to be good. I don't know. I think a lot of movies I didn't expect to be good. But like we're good. There's the Crocodile movie. Crawl.
Yeah.
Which was super fun. Like that felt like a sci-fi movie, like the Sci-Fi Channel movie. Yeah. It felt very much like a Sci-Fi Channel movie, but like. It was really simple. It didn't like have any. It wasn't like trying to lie to you and tell you that it's important. Yeah. It was like this. Like let's just have a good time and fight an alligator.
And it helps. Like I think that's the difference between that and a sci-fi movie. Sci-fi movies get any Joe Schmo that they hire off the street in LA to do their movie. This has a competent director has done a lot with Alexandra Aja.
Okay.
And well known in the horror community. He's a big horror guy. So I think giving a competent director, you can make gold out of anything.
Sure. I think what else? I seen Midsommar.
Yeah.
I did not like Midsommar.
That's on a watch for this week for me over New Year's.
I don't. I'm not gonna spoil it. I don't like Ari Aster. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like Heredity. I think I love so much the first half of his movies. I love so much the first half of his movies. It's so nuanced, and it's so like the emotions are really complicated, and all the characters have like really reasonable reactions to things. And then like the second half of his movie is always, and I think it's because horror is not my genre. Like I'm more like mumblecore drama, whatever. Like, but like the second half of his movie is always like, I think I want a drama, and I end up with a horror movie, and I kind of wish. And you
like the drama stuff more. I can understand that. Yeah.
I was like, oh, let's deal with like in Heredity. I was like, let's just deal with the dead daughter. Like that's like just a mother losing her shit, dealing with the death of a dead daughter. Like let's just, and then he ended up being a god or whatever. Like I got lost.
See, and then I think that's funny because I'm kind of the opposite. I like the drama stuff and like build it up and then go bonkers at the end because I love bonkers stuff. I think that's the best way to do a third act. That would appeal to me, but sure. I understand. Like
Midsommar was my girlfriend's favorite movie this year. She hates it. I hate it. But so I have not seen the Star Wars that came out.
Okay. Well, we don't need to talk about it then. That's fine.
I hear the reviews aren't great, and sometimes big sci-fi movies can be tiring. And so I'm gonna wait till after the holidays because like I've just been traveling a lot, whatever. I'm just tired, so I'm gonna like wait until I have the emotional energy to like handle my opinions on this movie because I feel like I'll probably have opinions, and it's just like I don't know. I think. It's impossible. I think Star Wars just means so much to like Western culture.
Well, it is.
It's everybody.
It literally is.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
And so like how this company decides to handle this like story, like this just says a lot about like what this means for audiences. Like this is their idea of what audience wants. What does that mean about their opinion of like? There's a lot of things that this movie is going to unintentionally tell me about
Disney,
and about and so I'm just like I'm gonna watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. Did Avengers come out this year? Was that a thing?
Yeah, Endgame. Yeah.
Endgame came out.
I know it's been such a long year. I forget that movie came out.
Endgame came out. It's good. Like, it's a good movie.
Yeah,
it made a lot of money.
You saw Jojo Rabbit, right?
I love Jojo. Okay. Oh my goodness, I love Jojo Rabbit.
I still haven't watched it because we haven't got it here in Sioux Falls yet.
I love Taika Waititi. I love him so much. I didn't know about him until he was until Thor.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, who's this guy? So I watched Boy, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And then I watched Jojo Rabbit. And Taika Waititi has this incredible there's this kindness about how he tells stories and but kindness with people that it's really hard to be kind to. And so I think in Boy, that's to this uneducated very criminal society that movie's about, and it's this kid who's not being parented very well, and his father's this criminal or whatever, but it's still kind and empathetic to everyone. And so Jojo, with a lot of money and an all-star cast, does that with Nazis in a way that's very. It's not as topical as I thought it would be, but it's very kind and it's very empathetic and it's very I like movies that reassure me there's good in the world. And so Jojo Rabbit does that, and it's hilarious and it's incredibly dark as well.
Yeah, and he has this really weird, quirky sense of humor. Even he just did the last episode of The Mandalorian, and even that entire episode has humor that's not really seen in previous episodes because it's totally Taika Waititi humor, and he wrote and directed it, so it totally makes sense. And I think he's just one of the best directors out there right now.
No, yeah. I stopped watching The Mandalorian. Maybe I'll watch the last episode. I should probably watch more than the last episode. I didn't like it. No? I don't know if that's
Are you a Star Wars guy? I think that's also part of people's enjoyment of it.
I think I don't. Star Wars is not my favorite sci-fi franchise, so it's not my big thing. I'm I think much more Marvel. That's my big flagship sci-fi thing that I go to everyone and I talk way too much about. No. So I think watching The Mandalorian, I just wasn't like I don't have an emotional reaction to the Mandalorian costume and the armor and stuff like that, whereas I think other people do and whatever. Yeah. And so I think that was a lot of it too. But I think the last episode I watched was the mud one. No, the one where they were on the farming planet and they had to scare the Seven Samurai episode.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then they leave the Baby Yoda there, or they don't, or whatever. I can't remember the end of the episode, but they either do.
The big ATSD there.
Yeah. And I think if I got more excited about seeing that, it would have been a better episode. Like I know like what that represents in Star Wars universe and it's like very fun or whatever, but like I just don't have that emotional connection.
Yeah.
So I think But
if you had to pick a favorite of the year, what's your favorite so far?
Maybe A Marriage Story.
Fantastic.
It was uncomfortable, and I love Adam Driver's hair. I think he
does have great hair.
he has wonderful like big hair. He
has such a year this year though.
Adam Driver, yeah.
4 big movies out in the same year.
Well, okay, so there was Star Wars. What were the other ones?
Star Wars, Marriage Story, The Dead Don't Die, and the Amazon movie. I can't think of the name of it, but it just came out right around Marriage Story. But that Marriage Story kind of swiped up all his.
No, Marriage Story was exhausting. It was it's real, and it was like I think my favorite thing about that is it was just so uncomfortable. And like there's like this one specific argument they have, Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. And then it ends up with her like hugging him at the knees at the end of it, and it's like this Marriage Story does like what Mumblecore does, but heightened. So like my favorite genre was Mumblecore, and so like I love like Joe Swanberger and like the Duplass brothers, and so like
I'm surprised you're not a horror guy then, because that's a lot of what they do. Yeah,
I know. But like. Marriage Story took a lot of like those very intimate things and made them just like 10% more theatrical and like 10% funner to watch. And so like, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. I really enjoyed how frustrated everyone was, and there was no good person, and like it's just inconvenient, and everyone had to like rearrange their lives. I think Inconvenience is a good like summary of that movie.
Yeah,
like, this divorce is just like no one wants to deal with it, and everyone like
they weren't trying to make it messy, but then certain like just little things happen in life as it does, and it completely changes the narrative of what you were thinking was going to happen.
No, it's like I think Adam Driver is going to be like he's just like we're seeing him build a legacy. Like I think he's going to be remembered very fondly for roles like, and it's crazy. He can do like this really weird like internal drama and like go to a Star Wars film, and so that's also really fun too.
Well, and he is the best part of these Star Wars movies too.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely,
gives it all, and he's amazing.
He treats Kylo Ren very seriously. Like. Yeah, I think he's so brooding and like he's always self-doubting. Like there's always like so much going on for Kylo Ren. Yeah, like emotionally. Yeah, Adam Driver's.
There's one scene in particular in Rise of Skywalker. I think you'll see the Adam Driver just gives it all, and he's fantastic in it. And yeah, he's one of my favorite actors working today. He had a big year.
What about you? What's your favorite? Or are you gonna save that for like a special?
No. I don't think we're doing anything with that. But I think this year, like my 3 of my favorites, The Lighthouse is probably my favorite.
I've not seen The Lighthouse.
I don't know if people like it. I loved it because it's bonkers. I think it's just nuts. Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are just crush it in that movie. It's not going to get any award nominations for them, but
really?
I wish it would, because Pattinson's really good in it, and so is Willem Dafoe. Marriage Story is probably up there.
Is it supposed to be like art house Oscar baity? Is it like meant to be that?
No, it's very art house, but not Oscar baity at all. It's not at all.
Okay, that makes me more interested to watch it then.
And I love that it's shot, because I love old school black and white horror films, and this is what it feels like. So it's shot in 3/4 frames, uses cameras from I think 20s or 30s is the camera he used it from, the time frame. Yeah,
that's cool.
And yeah, I think it's just a very moody story that I can't wait to go back into that world because it was not necessarily fun, but it was just bonkers, and I love bonkers stuff.
Okay.
Marriage Story's up there.
Okay.
And then Dolomite Is My Name is one of my favorites.
Fun.
So much fun.
I like
Eddie Murphy giving a shit again, which is nice.
I like how streaming services are giving us such good movies.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I love that Netflix is pushing forward with all their like Marriage Story, Dolomite.
I would have paid to see Dolomite. Like I would have paid the full cinema price, but I don't have to.
Same with any of the three big movies this year with Dolomite, Marriage Story, and Irishman. I would have paid to go watch all those.
In theaters. But,
and even The Irishman's still in theaters, I think now. In some places.
That's for awards, right? Because you have to be in awards. Yeah. You have to be in theaters to be eligible for awards.
Yeah. Marriage Story was in a few theaters. Dolomite might have been too. I would assume so, but
Dolomite was like that was a good time. Like that was like just a fun. Yeah, I like that movie.
And I love movies about making movies.
Sure.
So that one, and then one of my favorite horror movies of the year is One Cut of the Dead.
Okay.
It's on Shudder right now. It's about like people's love of you would love this movie actually. Okay. It's about people's love of just making something together, like the communal experience of making something together. Go in knowing nothing. Okay. But then I highly recommend.
What's it called?
One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead. It's like a film cut.
Yes. Gotcha. Yep. And actually, so I'll give you a brief synopsis of what it is. The first 30 minutes is one take.
Okay. Oh.
Of this movie that they make. Okay.
That's cool.
But so when you're watching it, you have to get through it because it's really bad.
Okay.
Like the dialogue doesn't make any sense and the acting's pretty bad. But you have to get through it to figure out what that is all about.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a reason for it all.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Highly recommend.
Okay.
One of my favorites of this year.
Okay. I like movies that like make more sense as you watch them. You're like, that doesn't make sense, but you figure out it did make sense.
Yeah. Like that movie I watched the first 10 minutes of one day. I started it. I'm like, I don't get the hype for this. This is really bad. Maybe it's supposed to be bad. I don't know. And then I went back to about a week later and watched it all the way through. I'm like, I get it now.
Gotcha.
I get it. So
okay.
Yeah. Let's finish off where you are actually doing a live show for Eternal Confidence. Let's talk about that.
I don't know. Okay.
What are you going to be doing with it?
Yeah. So I have this fascination of mixing live performance and film for some reason, like whatever. So that's how I showed my first documentary. It was narrated via live spoken word poetry, and the score was like live guitars and whatever. And so like I just thought that was really fun. So the live event, it's going to be like a facilitated conversation. So I'm not actually going to like make any like statements as far as like this is what I think about things, but it's going to be kind of inviting people in. There's a few featured musicians, and then we're going to watch like clips, and then the audience is going to have a chance to like react to the clips. And so I'm going to have some questions ready that I ask the audience, whatever, and then hopefully people are interested enough to have a conversation about like so just like different issues about belief and different issues about morality, whatever. And so we watch this clip, we kind of analyze what this person's saying, and then like hopefully the audience is interested enough to like talk about it amongst themselves as well. It's very, very grade school kind of
open dialogue, pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's what the live show is. It's I think that's one of the coolest things about learning how to content create is learning how to do a live thing. I think that's really important for like online content creators to learn how to do live events, and that's something that like this is my first live event for this, so I'm learning how to do it. But I think that's
we're in the same process. Okay.
But I think because you're gonna be at
we're gonna do
Shop.
Last Stop.
Yeah, about Last Stop CD Shop. Whatever.
20 days after yours.
Yeah. I think like content creators learning how to do live events. Like, what do you do? I think is one thing. Like, how do you make it special? How do you make it unique? What does it look like to make this like fun for everyone involved? And like people who've never heard of what you do before, how do you get that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get them and like invested too? So hopefully they subscribe once they walk out. Like I want everyone in there, if they're not subscribed, to subscribe by the time they walk out.
Well, yeah, I think it's one thing people may not know for kind of behind the scenes why people do live shows of their content.
Sure.
It's so that after you leave, you then watch the said content after. It's not necessarily for the live show. The live show is a promotion for.
Sure.
the content that you make weekly.
Yeah. And I think I think it's like weird and opposite of how I think about live things. Mm-hmm. Like if I was like a rapper or like a musician or whatever, I would like make internet content to promote my live shows. Mm-hmm. And this is like the opposite. And so I think learning how other content creators do that is really interesting too. So that's been something I've been like thinking about, just like how do I maximize people's experiences. Anyways, but yeah. So yeah, not ninth. I'm at the last. No, not that's you're at the last stop. Yep. I'm at Full Circle Book Co-op, which is great place. If for no other reason to not even to see me, just to go in there, that's cool. It's like this bookshop bar.
Full Circle is the best. I love Full Circle. Yeah. January 9th, 8 to 10. Is that right?
Yep.
Full Circle Book Co-op, downtown Sioux Falls. Easy to find.
Yes.
Go there. They have books and beer, and join the conversation there. Dempsey, that's all I got for you today.
I like these.
Those are pretty cool, aren't they? Yeah. Well, I want to bring you back on to talk Mumblecore movies, though, sometime.
Okay. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I need to watch some more. I love the two names you brought up, Joe Swanberg and the Duplass brothers. Like that's the ones I've seen, but I should get into more of those because I dig them.
I like them because they're okay. I know time's running out, but I'm just gonna make like this one point.
Okay.
I think they're like so Swanberg is from Chicago, and I think Mumblecore is like a very Midwestern thing, and I think that's why like I love it so much is because like it's. Like New York and LA are so big, like theatrical
it's
places.
Definitely not an LA thing.
But to see like, oh, I understand people feeling emotionally constipated like this because I'm from the Midwest and like that's a theme of our area, or whatever. Anyways, then that'd be super fun. That'd be fun.
Let's do it. All right, Dempsey. Thank you for doing this. Eternal Confidence. Go check it out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Right?
Yes.
All right.
Most importantly, YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay. Yep. Bye.